Hi, I'm Will, and welcome to the WPQuickies series, bite-sized WordPress tips and tricks in 30 minutes or less. And I have a new prop. I've got my 30-minute timer to keep me on track. So I'll put it down there and keep an eye on that. So today, I'm going to be looking at WordPress caching, a topic suggested by regular viewer Joey J. So thanks for that, Joey. And thanks for taking the time to join me this Sydney afternoon, and welcome to those people overseas and those watching on catch up later on. So before we start, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and ding that bell if you're on YouTube to get my latest video updates. And please drop a note in the comments. Just let me know who's watching, where you're from. So we have Steph online. Rick says, greetings again from Florida. Last week was a hurricane. This week a cold snap down to 70 degrees. Oh my goodness, 21 degrees. You know, in Scotland, anything above 20 degrees is a heat wave. That's where I'm from. So in Edinburgh, there's a gardens, there's a castle in the middle of the city, and there's the gardens round about the castle. And if it hits over 20, then all the locals, they start stripping their shirts off, and they're wandering around with a bare chest, you know. So one guy's cold snap is another guy's heat wave. Mr. Meowpuss, good to have you on board. Yeah, he in Sydney, sweating if it's 20. Yep, exactly. So different temperatures for different people. Gordon, thanks for joining in. Gordon, he's in Port Macquarie. We've got Julia. Hi, Julia. These are all our regular viewers. Thanks for taking your time to catch up and watch with me. Rick, he's looking forward to the caching aspect. Joey J from Singapore, this one's for you, Joey. Thank you for suggesting the topic. Morris says, hi from a sunny Sydney. Yes, it is nice and sunny today. And Paul says, hi, Will, from Sydney's northern beaches. Let's see if you can get out and have a dip in the sea later on. Okay, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Let's get cracking, shall we? Right, so this topic this month is all about WordPress caching. So why bother about caching anyway? A lot of people don't even bother. They just have their blog, they have their website working, and everything seems to work really well. And that's great, but it's all about speed. So speed is a huge ranking signal in the Google results algorithm. So if you're looking to generate a higher ranking in the search results, then one thing you really need to do is optimize your website for speed, and caching can help with that. Google will rank faster sites higher in the search engine results, and everyone wants to be on the top of page one, of course. So if your site is faster than your competitors, then you have a very big SEO advantage over them. And this is where caching comes into play. So let's have a quick look about how WordPress renders or creates a web page. It's a rather complex type of picture here, and let me see if I can just go through and help you follow this one along. So let's start with the basics. A web browser can only understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's it. Okay, you send anything else, it goes, I don't know. So WordPress is a PHP application, and the majority of content that WordPress deals with is in a database. So there's a bit of a process to go through before the HTML data can be sent to the browser. And this is known as dynamic response or dynamic data. So the dynamic part is where the server has to run the WordPress PHP application. And then it runs other PHP files. So think about the WordPress headers, the footers, sidebars, archives, all those sorts of pages. And these PHP files, they then collate a whole heap of JavaScript, CSS, and media files as well as asking for data from the database. Now, all this data, once it's collated, is used to dynamically create an HTML page, which is then eventually sent to the web browser. Phew, that's quite a lot of stuff. So in this diagram here, you can see the box here. And well, let's just do the workflow. So first of all, a WordPress browser or a web browser says, show me the WordPress site. And then it contacts the server. And then within that box there, you can see there's a server. there's WordPress in the middle, and there's a database. And it's doing all these things. It's compiling PHP, it's looking at JavaScript and CSS resources, it's asking the database for information out of it, or even maybe it might be going out to external API calls like Facebook or Google or Instagram, all this sort of stuff. So within that box, it's doing an awful lot of stuff, and sometimes that can take quite a bit of time. So if only there was a way to store that dynamically created stuff as HTML pages and serve them straight back to the browser the next time somebody requests the same web page. So welcome to the world of caching. So a cache is a bit of content that has already been rendered, the bit within that server box there. And then the next time somebody asks for that same bit of content, then rather than WordPress doing all the work of creating all the HTML, the cache system just spits out the HTML file and goes, there you go. And this can shave seconds off responses and make your whole website a lot faster. Okay. So let's go. If you want to have a really good explanation about what caching is, I don't have time to go through the full explanation, but there's a great link, a great post on WP Rocket's page, which is caching explained in plain English. So if you want a more detailed understanding of exactly how caching works, of what goes on, in that box, and then what goes on in the caching system to make your site faster, I do recommend having a read of that article offline. Okay, so let's jump into the different types of site caching. Sorry, Alan. Thanks for joining in. No worries. So there are generally 3 types of caching. That's actually a lie. There's 4. But in general, there's 3 types of caching that will help speed up a website. Now, the 4th one that I'm not going to go into, it's called micro caching. And that's used to store data maybe for about 10, 11, 15 seconds. Now, it's used within systems for database calls and views and things like that. So it's not really something that's going to make a huge difference to overall to like a blog site. Maybe it might make some huge enterprise sites speed up, because of the thousands of pages. But we're going to take micro caching off the landscape just now and just focus on these 3 types of site caching. So a site cache, or a page cache, as it's also known, stores website data the first time a website is loaded. And each time a website visitor returns to your website, saved elements are quickly accessed by the cache and then displayed to the visitor, speeding up that whole process and bypassing that box where WordPress renders all those files. So this is a type of client-side caching because it's served to the browser, so it's not really done on the server side itself. And as a website owner, the only say you have is how long that content can remain static for in the cache. So pages with content that don't change much, they're called static pages. These can be set in the cache with a long expiry. And pages can be set in the cache. So pages with dynamic content, that's content that changes a lot. They can be set in the cache with a short expiry or bypassed altogether. So they're always rendered, they're always asked for a new copy from the server to pick up all the changed data. And if your site has a lot of static content, then it could benefit from site caching. And in this case, you would probably look towards a plugin, and I'm going to look at some plugin options in a few minutes. Okay, the next type of caching is browser cache. So browser cache, again, it's a type of site caching built into your end user's web browser. Now, website elements are stored by the browser on your visitors' computers and grouped together with other files, other associated files like CSS files and JavaScript associated with that main content. Now, a browser cache can contain HTML, CSS, style sheets, images, and other multimedia content. There is a slight overlap between site cache and browser cache. So some of the things they do are very, very similar because they're both client-side caching systems. So all browsers have a caching system that is fully automated without the need for user intervention. Although for most browsers, you can go and clear the cache if you're having some problems with logging in or dynamic data. Most WordPress caching plugins will also implement some level of browser caching as well as site caching. But if you want to do it manually, you're going to need access to some of your website files. And for Nginx users, then you're going to need to have access to the actual server configuration files themselves. That's something you might not be able to do. So for Apache type web servers and Lightspeed type web servers, so you'll need to edit a file called .htaccess on your site's root public HTML folder. And for Nginx web servers, there's a great DigitalOcean article. I'll just post a link in there. That handles how you configure the Nginx server blocks themselves to implement browser caching. So here, the code up here, I'll just make it big so you can see that here. In this example, this is an Apache or part of an Apache .htaccess file. And in it, we are telling the browser cache to fetch new images. So here it's within the module mod expires. There's a hashtag hash images, which is the comment there. And the first group of those lines are for images. So we are telling the browser cache to fetch new images after 6 months. So in other words, have a look in the cache first. If there's anything there, pull it out, and it's not older than 6 months, pull it out and use that. Otherwise, it's older than 6 months, go and fetch a new copy from the server. And similar to videos, we're saying to the browser to have a look at MP4 and MPEGs. If they're over a year old, then don't use the cache and go and get some new ones. Otherwise, use your cache. And for CSS and JavaScript files, because they can change quite frequently, we're setting their expiry just to 1 month. So that's something you can do to try and speed up your site. So you're actually giving the browser rules on how you want the different types of content on your website to be cached for. So I hope that makes sense there. Okay, the last type of caching is called server caching. And the term server caching, it's kind of an umbrella term which covers all the different types of systems that servers use to cache data. These systems could include things like a content delivery network. Steph's already mentioned one, is Cloudflare, and does handle all these different types of caching as well. So Cloudflare is a CDN. Object caching on the server like Memcache, and opcode caching, which is the storing of precompiled PHP code snippets. Now, using server caching for temporary storage is called server-side caching, and you might not be able to access this if you're just like a normal website owner, unless you have your own web server like a VPS or something. Cloudflare CDN is probably the only system you'll be able to implement by yourself as an end user. cPanel and Ples dashboards, which are probably the most popular web hosting interface, they have easy interfaces to help set up your website with Cloudflare. Otherwise, as I said, unless you maintain your own server, you're probably going to be unable to implement most of these server-side caching, and that's going to be the remit of the web hosting provider. Okay. Hopefully everyone's got like a general idea of the different levels of caching. So you've got site caching, site or page caching. You've got browser caching for the different elements that make up an HTML page. And then you've got server caching, which does cover CDNs like Cloudflare, but for the majority, it's probably going to be your web hosting provider that implements that backend server caching, and micro caching, which we didn't really talk about. Okay, cool. So let's look at some of the popular WordPress caching plugins that you can implement on your site to implement site caching and as well browser caching as well. Now, the first one I want to cover is WP Rocket. Let me just pop down the link here. And what I'll do for those who are watching this, if you can get access to the real-time live chat replay, then I'm going to pop all these links in the actual comment down below the video on YouTube and Facebook as well, because we've got some viewers on Facebook today. So WP Rocket, it's priced at $49 US per site per year with other pricing options depending on what you're looking for. WP Rocket is probably the most popular premium cache plugin with over 1.3 million websites using it. That's an awful lot of websites, just WordPress websites, of course. It is super easy to use and configure, and it's been pre-built so that when you install and activate it, for the majority of WordPress installations, it will work out the box and give you browser caching and speed up your site there and then. So it's really, really good from that point of view. WP Rocket, it's got lots of different options. If you are a beginner, it's got like an easy interface, or if you look for more advanced stuff, you can drill down into the more advanced caching features if you want to do that, if you need to do that for your website. So as well as the normal page caching, WP Rocket also implements its own, they say, faster lazy loading system, faster than the WordPress core one. And it also does tricks like it minifies, squashes down JavaScript files and CSS files as well. It also comes with lots of hooks and filters, so it's developer friendly. So if you are a developer or a theme designer, you can use these hooks and filters to change caching on particular pages or code sections or templates, such as client dashboards, profiles, checkouts, or even carts and things like that, that deals with dynamic data. So definitely a great paid option, WP Rocket. I've spoken to a lot of people who use this. I've used it on a couple of clients' websites, and they absolutely swear by it. And it's one of these plugins where if you're doing a plugin audit and people are wanting to reduce the number of plugins, probably one of the things they would say to me is, don't get rid of WP Rocket, because it makes such a big difference in the SEO side. Okay, the next one I want to look at is WP Optimise. I'll just post the link in here, and I am keeping an eye out on my timer. It's almost half done. WP Optimise, it's a freemium caching plugin, which means that the core plugin itself is free, and then you've got a paid premium option starting at 39. Is it 39? Yes, $39 per site per year, with other premium options depending on your number of sites and what you want to do. So this plugin, it comes from the same developers that make WP Updraft, the backup plugin. So it has got a solid coding base, and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, which is good. WP Optimize, it speeds up your WordPress site by several methods. So it optimizes your database. It's got a built-in database optimizer. So it's looking for space to clean out your database. It's looking for transients and all those things that it can get rid of just to make your database smaller, and so therefore all your database requests are quicker. It also has options, as well as caching your site, to compress large images. So you can set JPEGs or PNG compression rates as well, or specify WebP on-the-fly creation. So it's got some really good options there for image compressions. So if your website is a heavy image user, then this could be a great option for you to start out on. So that's the basic version. The premium version has additional features, of course, such as things like multi-site support, lazy loading, multi-language and multi-currency caching, and a whole lot more. So check out the website, the link that I sent below, for a complete list of free and paid comparison features. Okay, next one. This one is called SG Optimizer. Or for SiteGround Optimizer, and it's a free caching plugin by SiteGround that's available for download on the WordPress.org repository. Now, it's built to connect your WordPress site with the SiteGround performance services, and as such, only SiteGround owners and website owners can use this theme. And there's a big note in the description that says, if you are not a SiteGround owner, don't use this plugin because it won't work. Now, I only include it here because SiteGround has such a large WordPress website hosting. It's such a large hoster, and it's got such a huge amount of WordPress websites on it that I want to include it here. I've got several SiteGround customers as well, SiteGround clients. And I wanted to mention this here because it actually is a very, very good plugin. And you can see huge performance differences when you enable that plugin. As to, just having nothing at all. So if you are a SiteGround customer, I would definitely recommend grabbing this SG Optimizer plugin and using that as your primary caching system. Okay, jumping on, we're almost done. This one is called WP Super Cache, and I'll put the link in down below. There we go. So WP Super Cache, this is a completely free plugin, so there's no paid premium options. And the plugin is from Automatic, the people behind the WordPress open source project. It has over 2 million installations, so it has a really huge user base. And because it's owned and maintained by Automatic, then you can pretty much ensure that it's not going to conflict with your WordPress website. So this plugin is best used with sites that are probably more static based than dynamic. So think things like blog sites or business websites, and they will probably benefit more than if you have a website such as an e-commerce or a membership site that's more dynamic data. The interface itself is pretty simple. It has 3 modes. It has a simple mode, an expert mode, and an advanced mode. So it allows you to tweak settings depending on your skill level. And it's completely free, so bonus on that one. The next one and last plugin I want to cover today is a W3 Total Cache. And this is the one that I run on most of my websites if they're not using the WP Rocket Premium plugin. So again, this plugin is completely free, and you can get it from the WordPress.org plugin repository. This one has over 1 million installations. So again, it's in that top 3 of the most popular caching plugins for WordPress overall. So it improves your server performance by caching pretty much every aspect of your site. It also offers integrations with content delivery networks, Cloudflare and others out there. So it's not just Cloudflare, and there's lots of other CDN options that you can have. The developers, and I'm reading this one here, the developers, and it's in the description of the plugin, the developers claim the plugin can offer up to 80% bandwidth savings via minification, which is the process of reducing size of your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and feeds without having a negative impact. So that's a claim on the WordPress, on the plugin page on the WordPress.org. So that's a developer saying that can offer up to 80% bandwidth savings. So that that means the smaller the files are, the less time it takes to download to the browser, and the quicker the overall page speed is. So that sounds great. And I definitely see a big performance increase when I install W3 Total Cache on some of my websites. Now, the interface, it's not as simple as WP Super Cache. Whereas WP Super Cache has a very minimal interface, W3 Total Cache throws all the options into your face. So it's probably not the best for a beginner system. But give it a try, see what it's like. If you run Nginx as your web server, then W3 Total Cache is a great option to have. With the plugin, it actually includes settings. So when you install W3 Total Cache and you're running Nginx, it'll tell you, it says, oh, I see you run Nginx. Here's a big code block to copy into your server block. And if you do that, if you are able to do that with the Nginx server, then W3 Total Cache then links in with the server-side caching as well. So you're not just getting site caching, you're getting server-side caching as well with W3 Total Cache. And that's why I like it, because I run a lot of VPS systems that are using Nginx as the core web server. So again, just want to reiterate, probably not the best plugin to start with if you're brand new to site caching. But if you're looking to tweak every little bit of aspect of your cache, then this is the best option to have. Okay. So there are, of course, a lot more caching plugins out there. But in my opinion, these ones are the best of the bunch. So then it comes down to which one should you choose? Well, of course, that depends on your skill level with implementing different caching techniques, as well as your budget. There is no one size fits all. However, saying that, if you are on SiteGround, if you're a SiteGround user, then I would recommend choosing that SG Optimizer plugin, because it does link in with the SiteGround's backend caching system. So that's probably the best option for you then. If you don't want to pay any money, for a premium plugin, then WP Super Cache and W3 Total Cache would probably be your best options to try out. But overall, out of all the plugins, I would recommend WP Rocket to be the top-rated caching plugin overall. Okay, guys, if you have any comments, I am happy to take them. Let's just see. I'll scroll up to the top. Steph, you had some comments here. And look, we've got plenty of time. Awesome. So Steph said he tried WP Rocket. He didn't think it ran properly on his server configuration, and he didn't notice any speed increase. I am surprised about that, Steph, because of all the client sites I've used WP Rocket, then I've done page speed tests before and afterwards, and I've always seen a huge increase in page speed just without even tweaking that. So Steph does qualify that his theme was a bit bloated at the time. Yeah, so that might have had a negative effect on that. But I think WP Rocket out of the box is a really, really good option. And then once you start getting down into the settings, then you really can tweak it and optimize your site. You get some great performance. Oh, I sound like Donald Trump there. Great, totally great. I'll stop saying that. Okay, we had some other stuff. So Joey J, sorry. Sometimes after updating styles.css, I don't see changes reflected on my website. What could be the reasons? I've seen this many times. Yeah, so out of the box, what WordPress does is when a theme or plugin registers CSS, if you have a look in the source code, you'll find it'll have the HTTP URL link to the .css file. Then there'll be a little question mark, and usually there'll be a v or version equals, and then whatever the theme or the plugin version is. And generally, when WordPress loads that in, it won't change it because it's the same version unless that version changes. What you can do is, if you find there's a particular CSS style that isn't changing, isn't updating all the time, then you can try things like updating the version of your theme, updating the version of your plugin, or when you enqueue, which is WordPress's methods of loading style sheets in, drop the version from the end of the URL. And you can do that within the WP enqueue WordPress API call. And so you drop the version, which means that WordPress will then just load styles.css in dynamically all the time. Okay, so hopefully, Joey, that will help you with that part there. Rick, it is my pleasure. Julia, any advice on tools to measure the performance differences before and after a plugin? Yep, so there's lots of tools out there. There's a Google Page Speed tool. There is Pingdom tools, that's Pingdom, Pingdom tools. And there's also, what's the other one that I use? Oh, it's just dropped from my head just now. There is another one. Let me just see if I can Google that. Page performance. I can't believe I just forgot that one. Let's see, GT metrics. There we go. GT metrics is one of the kind of the primary ones. I can't believe I forgot that. One of the primary ones I use for page speed tests. So I'll just drop that in the comments. So GT metrics. And what was the other one I said? Pingdom tools. And Pingdom tools. So as well as Google page speed within Google Analytics and stuff. Yeah, so those are good ones to use. Run it before, and then implement your caching plugin. Run it afterwards. Make sure you run it from the same data location, the same server location as well, to get the best speed results from that. And hopefully, Julia, that will help you. Steph says SiteGround add-on. You had the same no notice in speed increase too. Oh, okay. Poor Steph. You got no increase from any of these tools. I find that quite unusual, but it really would have to look into that particular implementation you have on that. But I definitely get performance results whenever I implement Cloudflare or any of these caching systems. Morris says, is a WordPress site converted into static file effectively the same as a site that has been cached in terms of speed? Okay, let's see. Right, I think Morris, did you send in a topic request about converting a WordPress site to static files? I definitely know there was a topic request in there. In general, Morris, yes, it is very, very similar. So what it's doing is it's rendering that whole PHP, CSS, external file stuff to make the HTML file. It's storing that. And then next time somebody comes to request it, rather than go through the whole server stuff, it just throws out that HTML. So effectively, it's the same thing. But it depends on how you set up your caching. Obviously, you're going to have dynamic pages, things like dashboards or checkouts or carts. Even profiles can be updated dynamically as well. So in those instances, it wouldn't be a flat cached HTML file. But generally, in terms of speed, yes. This is what we're hoping for. So let me just go back to that graphic. This one here. So when a client requests a web page, then it's going all the way to the server. It's saying to the server, give me this site. WordPress then takes over. So WordPress loads its initialization files, it loads its configuration files, it initializes all the plugins, it initializes all the themes, it does all the hooks and filters, and then it gets to the page, then it has a look at what's on the page, it grabs stuff from the database, it loads in other PHP files, it does all this stuff, and then it creates an HTML data set, which it then goes back to the server, which then the server then gives back to the client browser. And all that bit in the middle takes 10, 15, 20 seconds, however long it's going to take. Whereas if you implement caching, it does create like a static HTML page for static pages in WordPress. So rather than going through all that roundabout, the server just says, the client browser says, give me that page. The server goes, oh, I have a page. There you go. So you can cut 10, 15 seconds off your page. So yes, pretty much in terms of speed, that's what you're trying to get to that effect, to have like a static page response. Right, great question. Thanks, Morris. Let me see if there's any other ones here. Rick says WP Total Cache options menu is huge. It is. So I did say it's not for beginners because it is absolutely huge. Alan says, sorry if I missed this, but what do you recommend for testing website speed? Yep. So I dropped that in the comment. Julia asked that as well. So GT metrics, Google page speed test, or Pingdom tools is some of the tools that you want here, but probably GT metrics is probably on top, I would think, for those. Let me see. Morris says, regarding GT metrics, I see they've changed their website and now reports differently to before. It shows structure, not just 2 speed tests as before. Okay, it could do. I've not ran speed tests for quite a while. I've been into doing other things, which I might talk about maybe in the new year. But okay, I'll have a look at that. Thanks for letting me know, Morris. Alan asks, if a hoster was slow, so an ISP, would you recommend using caching or changing the hoster as the best solution? That is a super question, Alan. I'm glad you asked that one. What I would recommend is if your host is slow, change your host. Changing web host is probably the single best option that you can do to increase your page, your overall page speed. And then on top of that, then you start building caching like Cloudflare or WP Rocket and browser caching as well. So yeah, the number one thing if you want a better website is to investigate your host and change to a speedier host. So you'd probably be looking at things like WP Engine, Kinsta, Pagely. These hosting providers, they have access to premium DNS, premium servers, premium internet lines. So it's all the fast stuff there. You are going to pay for it, of course, but nothing in life is free. So thanks for Alan. That's a super question. Morris, yes, he did send in that topic request. I've given that quite a lot of thought, and yeah, I've not queued it up yet. So maybe in the new year I might touch on that because it's quite an interesting topic, Morris. I don't know if I'll be able to do that within 30 minutes. But yeah, it could be a good one for like a general WordPress meetup, one of the evening ones. Steph asks, isn't the WordPress homepage static by default? No, it's not, Steph. You can basically choose whatever web page you want for WordPress. But nothing in WordPress out of the box is static, because you're going through that process of PHP, rendering the page, the header, the footer, the sidebar, initializing themes, plugins, doing all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so if we're talking about static in the true sense of like an HTML file, then no, the WordPress overall is not static. It's fully dynamic. Great question. Thanks for that. Okay, guys, I think that's it. Let's see. Last one, Joey J. He's going to watch it again later. Optimise has a lot fewer options, and he's moved from W3 Total Cache. Yep. W3 Total Cache is pretty much for advanced users, but it allows you to get into that detailed granularity. So thanks, Joey J, for sending that topic in. Next week, we're going to cover event management. So some plugins on how to deal with time, like selling time slots, all things like that, selling events and tickets. Again, if you have any topic suggestions for WPQuickies topic, you can fill out the form. The link's below on YouTube and on Facebook as well. And just as we're talking about the community, I was just checking my time. 6 minutes over, and my timer's blocked. Look, I need to get a refund. It started again. Okay. So if you want to find more about the WordPress community in Australia, visit wpaustralia.org for a list of local meetup groups, and instructions on how to access WP Australia on Slack, our Slack group, where you can ask questions and chat to people in real time. And here's just a quick look at wpaustralia.slack.com. Lots of people chatting there, lots of questions. I definitely hang out on there. I've got it open in one of my windows all the time. And guys, if you want to connect with me, happy to do that. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're connecting with me on LinkedIn, just drop me a note as well in the connection to say you're coming from the WP Quickies, on Instagram and on Twitter as well. Okay, guys, thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and looking forward to speaking again and talking with you next week. Ciao, take care and stay safe.